Keir Starmer has been selling the British public a massive illusion. He stood before the cameras, made grand promises, and assured everyone that his government would take firm control of the situation, cracking down on the criminal gangs responsible for illegal immigration. He funneled millions into flashy new initiatives, ramped up the tough rhetoric, and expected the public to believe he had the crisis under control. But now, the truth is out. The statistics have been revealed, and Starmer's carefully crafted narrative has collapsed spectacularly. His grand strategy has unraveled before the nation's eyes, exposing the failure, deception, and complete lack of control. This is a disaster of his own making. Let's break it all down. But before we do, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join our rapidly growing community. In the past 5 days alone, more than 1,300 migrants have illegally crossed the English Channel, as reported by GB News. That staggering number could have been even higher if not for the rough weather conditions that had battered the channel in previous weeks. Now that the storms have eased, there has been an explosion in crossings, and the figures paint a grim picture for Starmer's so-called plan to dismantle the criminal networks behind illegal immigration. Just today, at least 180 migrants have arrived on British shores. Yesterday, another 326 made the journey in just 6 small boats. The day before that, an additional 182 successfully crossed. On Sunday, a record-breaking 592 migrants landed in the UK in just 11 boats, marking the largest single-day arrival in March ever recorded. Despite Starmer's bold claims about being tough on crime, his policies have failed to curb these crossings. In fact, the situation is deteriorating. Since the start of the year, over 3,400 migrants have reached the UK via the Channel, a nearly 20% increase compared to the same period last year. And 2024 itself was already a record-breaking year, with a 36,800-person increase from the year before. So, what has Keir Starmer actually done to address this crisis? Well, he has thrown millions into the newly established Border Security Command and allocated additional resources to the National Crime Agency. There have been some arrests of suspected people smugglers both in the UK and across Europe, but has any of this actually stopped the crossings? The answer is a resounding no. A maritime security expert put it bluntly: it's as obvious as daylight, this so-called crackdown on smuggling gangs just isn't working. We've had 8 months of a Labour government with reported increases in law enforcement activity, but the numbers keep rising. The only factor affecting the number of crossings is the weather. If it weren't for the recent storms, we'd be looking at even higher figures. This is where Starmer's deception becomes clear. He talks tough, throws money at agencies, and announces flashy new measures, but the reality remains unchanged. The smuggling operations continue to thrive, the crossings are increasing, and Labour's much-hyped "Smash the Gangs" initiative has backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, the Home Office insists it is doing everything in its power. A government spokesperson reiterated, "We are committed to ending dangerous small boat crossings that threaten lives and undermine our border security. These smuggling gangs have no regard for human life, only for profit, and we will stop at nothing to dismantle their operations and bring them to justice." But the British public has heard these promises before. This government, like its predecessors, is stuck in a cycle of empty words and ineffective policies. While Starmer portrays himself as tough on illegal immigration, the facts tell a different story. The crossings continue to rise, and the public is being misled. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments below. In other news, the push for net zero could lead to a significant financial burden on British households. According to a report by Professor Gordon Hughes, a former World Bank energy advisor, households may be paying an additional £900 in energy bills by 2030. His research warns that rising electricity costs, increased grid maintenance expenses, and green subsidies will drive prices up, with businesses passing these extra costs on to consumers. This could result in an estimated £1,800 increase in everyday expenses like food and travel. These findings contradict Labour's claims that the net zero agenda will reduce energy bills by £300. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband remained steadfast, asserting, "Net zero will bring enormous benefits to our country and our world." Just last week, he doubled down on Labour's commitment to clean energy, calling it the single most important step we can take. However, Hughes' research suggests otherwise, forecasting a minimum 75% increase in energy costs. Instead of reducing bills, the transition to renewable energy is driving them higher. Andrew Montford of Net Zero Watch has criticised Labour's approach, warning that Miliband's policies are causing severe damage to the UK economy. He urged Starmer to intervene immediately before things spiral further out of control. Hughes also challenged claims that rising energy bills are driven by fossil fuel prices. He pointed instead to green taxes and subsidies, which now account for over 34% of household electricity costs. While Labour promises a greener future, Hughes warns that the UK will remain reliant on fossil fuels for decades, requiring billions in investments for backup gas power stations when renewable energy sources fail to meet demand. His model estimates that the government will need at least £150 billion to expand wind and solar farms over the next 5 years, far exceeding official government projections. The economic consequences could be dire, particularly for energy-intensive industries. Manufacturers struggling with skyrocketing costs may have no choice but to reduce wages or move operations abroad. A government spokesperson dismissed Hughes' findings, blaming previous administrations for failing to invest in renewable energy. They insist that, in the long run, net zero will stabilize energy prices and create a more secure energy system. But as prices continue to soar, Miliband faces mounting pressure to justify Labour's green agenda. Lastly, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has launched a scathing attack on the government's new sentencing guidelines, accusing Labour of creating a two-tier justice system. Under the new guidelines, magistrates and judges are now advised to consider ordering pre-sentence reports if an offender belongs to an ethnic, cultural, or faith minority. Jenrick condemned the move, arguing that it introduces bias into the legal process and undermines equality before the law. During a heated debate in the Commons, Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood rejected Jenrick's accusations, stating, "There will never be a two-tier justice system under my watch or under this Labour government." Jenrick, however, remained firm in his criticism, calling the guidelines outrageous and ludicrous. He argued that they inherently discriminate against white men and suggested that offenders who are female, transgender, neurodiverse, or from minority backgrounds are now less likely to receive custodial sentences. He further accused Mahmood of either knowingly allowing the policy or failing in her role. The Justice Secretary should have been aware of this before it was introduced. She has a personal representative on the Sentencing Council, and no objection was raised, he stated. Jenrick has called for immediate intervention and the reversal of these guidelines, insisting, justice must be equal for all. The rule of law means that every individual is treated the same, regardless of their race or religion. So, what are your thoughts on today's topics?
Let us know in the comments below.
That wraps up today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more British content.